What's going on, guys? My name is Lieben, and today I'm going to be installing some new brake rotors on the gray 350Z. I went ahead and inspected it, and I believe that the rotors are the ones that have been creating the noise, as opposed to the wheel bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and replace these first because it's the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and jack up the car, take off the old ones, and put the new ones. I was going to take it to my auto parts store to have them cut, but I was told that those ones were already too thin and wouldn't be able to handle it and still be safe to drive on. So I just went ahead and bought new ones, and honestly, these things look so cool. I've never seen like brand new brake rotors that are like spotless outside of the car, so I honestly think that that's pretty cool. So now I also have to go ahead and clean these with some brake cleaners before I install them. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright guys, and this is actually a pretty simple install. I've actually had to take these off before. They were the back ones, but it's the same process when I had to go ahead and change the parking brake shoes on my blue 350Z. Basically, the only thing that's holding on the disc to the knuckle and the hub are two bolts right here that are holding on the brake caliper, and that's what holds it on. And then when you put the tire on and put the lug nuts on, that also centers it so it's not wobbling, which is why it's also important when you put on your tire that you do it in a cross pattern so it's not uneven, therefore having the possibility of your tire falling off or something on here not seated properly and causing an accident. Alright, and like I said, there's only two bolts I have to take off, so I'll go ahead and see if I can show you guys which ones they are. So that one right there would be one of them, up right there, and then from the bottom side here is the other one that you're gonna have to take off. Okay, and both of those bolts are actually 22 millimeters, so that makes it pretty easy. And here we have one bolt off. And here we have the second one off. These ones weren't that hard for me to take off because when I was inspecting them, I had to take them off too to take the disc off. But some of them, like when I first took them off the first time, they were on there pretty tight. Sometimes they get seized up with all the rust and debris that gets onto them. Okay, so now when taking off your caliper, you want to be careful that you don't stretch or pull too much on the brake line because you could damage it. So you can't see it, but I have a block of wood right here where I'm going to set it on just so it's not dangling and there's too much tension on the line. I just got to take this off. And also too, I'm going to see if I can go ahead and put this piece of wood in between, just so the caliper doesn't close. It might not really matter anyways because I have to change the brake pads as well. And meanwhile I'm doing that, it's going to compress and it might not even make a difference, but I'll do it just in case. Give some light taps with the mallet and that should be secure there. Just put this off to the side, and now you can see here that it's already loose, so it's literally just pulling it out and the disc comes out. So now what I want to go ahead and do is compare this disc to the new ones that I have, just to make sure they look pretty similar. I don't want to install something that, let's say the other discs are more bigger and the tire doesn't fit properly. That wouldn't be a good thing, so I want to go ahead and make sure they're the same ones. Alright guys, and here we have the old ones and the new ones, and I went ahead and put them back to back, and they are the same diameter. They both have their 5 lug nut setup. The only difference I can tell is that this one has a screw right there or the hole to thread a screw, and this one does not. I believe what that bolt or screw is for is if they ever get seized up, you can use it to kind of give you some leverage to pop it out, because when I go over here onto the hub, I don't see anywhere where it would actually screw on to keep it secure. So that's why I believe it's just in case you ever need to put a bolt or screw in there, and then it forces the disc to kind of pop out like that, and making it easier to remove if you ever have to. Alright, so now before I install this one, like I said, I want to go ahead and replace the brakes as well, because if that rotor was warped, most likely the brake pads are also not even as well. So here I have a new set that I will be installing. Alright, and these hopefully should be easy to take off. So I'll go ahead and take off this wood here and see if I can just push them out. There we go. There's the first one. Okay guys, so it seems like I had to go ahead and take off the bracket holding on the brake pads from the caliper itself, because the brake pad didn't want to come out. It's just held on by two 14mm bolts that go on right here from this side of the caliper there, so it wasn't that difficult either. So now I believe I just have to go ahead and pop out the brake pad, just use a hammer or whatnot to see if it comes out. I'll probably need to use both hands, I can't do it with the camera on, but it does seem that there was some unevenness going on. If you guys can see, the edge of this brake pad that I was able to get off is a lot higher than the remaining side of the brake pad. It looked like it still had a lot of life left in it, but just all of the unevenness wasn't allowing the brake pad to work how it's supposed to. So I looked at the new pair of brake pads side by side with the old ones, and they look pretty much the same. So now I can go ahead and install the new ones onto the bracket. Alright, so I got scared there for a second because they weren't going in, but it was just me not being smart and putting them on the wrong side. After I figured that out, they went in pretty smoothly. So now that they're installed onto this bracket, I'll go ahead and install them using the 14mm bolts back onto the caliper. And hopefully the pads stay in place.
Nope.
Okay guys, these have to be some of the most annoying brake brackets, this one right here, to have to work with. It was really, it kept on popping out, because if you see right down here, there is another kind of lock that locks into the brake pad right here, this loop. So then that one kind of pushes on the brake, causing this end to keep on popping out. So I decided to not show everything while I was putting it in, because it was taking me a while and I didn't want the batteries to die. But I was finally able to put it in, put the brake pads on here, and then I put this piece of wood back in there again to kind of go ahead and open the caliper up again. And hopefully when I take it out, it's opened wide enough that it will fit over the disc. So now I can go ahead and put the disc on. Okay, there we have the new disc, and now comes the fun part. Hopefully this is easier than putting the brakes on. And I can already tell that the caliper closed, so it's not wide enough to go onto the disc. Now, I will say, don't do this what I'm doing. I know there's a special tool that you can get that actually is the same size of the brake pad to push the caliper in. I don't have that tool, and I don't want to go out to the parts stores right now in the middle of this to go get it. So, which is why I'm using a tapered piece of wood to kind of push it out, but it could also be damaging the brake pads. I'm not sure. I won't see it until after I take it off. So I would say, if you're gonna do this, probably buy the proper tool so you don't risk damaging the brake pads. Now that I tapped it all the way, it seems to have gotten looser, which probably means that the brake pads have now opened up to the width of the piece of wood. So now when I take it off, I have to be quick about putting it onto the disc so that the caliper doesn't close up again. All right. And that again was a fail, and because of the same bracket that I've been having to fight with this whole time, it's not holding on the brake pad good enough, and then it keeps on popping off. So I have to go ahead and put that back on and try again. So it looks like we're getting there. I'm opening it little by little. We're just not quite there yet. So I'll keep on tapping this. Try it here real quick. And it's still not quite wide enough. Alright, so unfortunately I wasn't unable to show you guys how I installed it or when I put it on, because I was so focused on having this pad not jump off while I put it on, and tapping the wood in to open it. It was a bit of a process, I will say that, but now that I have it on, I will go ahead and tighten the bolts, the first ones that I took off, to take off the whole caliper. I also want to go ahead and check these ones, make sure these are tightened also, and then after that I can go ahead and put the tire on. But what I'm thinking about doing to make sure that these are actually grabbing on, it doesn't matter, I can do it with the tire on or off, but I want to go ahead and push the brake pedal inside the car, because right now if I turn this, as you guys can see, it does turn. So hopefully when I break the or push the brake pedal in, it stiffens up, it tightens up, and it doesn't let me turn the pedal. But yeah, for right now I'll go ahead and tighten those bolts on. Alright guys, and there you have it. I went ahead and tightened up the 4 bolts, made sure those were on there secure. I went ahead and had someone press the brakes while I turned this, and as you can see, it's already even more stiff than before, and that is because you can kind of see that the brakes are still kind of holding on to right there. So it is grabbing on, and it is pretty secure on here. I mean, it still has some play, but it's pretty secure on there. So now that we have this side done, I still have to go ahead and do the other side. But because all of this is the same process on both sides, there isn't really anything else to show you guys. It's going to be the exact same process, and honestly I'm not looking forward to having to work on the brake pads on the other side, because like I said, that was the most difficult part of this install. I've never had a more like delicate and aggravating bracket than this one before, and also that the brake pad didn't want to stay on there. But if that's the hardest thing, that's honestly not that bad. I've had to work on harder installs, so overall I'd say this was a pretty easy install. It just takes a couple of things you have to get to know and how to do. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it for this install. Go ahead and see you guys in the next one.